Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to continue our college football predictions for Week 8. Last week, I went 17-7, which brings my total season record up to 79-53. And the season is starting to shape. Things are starting to shape up with the college football season. I mean, some of the games last week, they felt they lived up to the hype. We had like 3 prospects for game of the week. And I think looking at this week games, there are a couple of prospects. And that takes us to our very first game, which is a Thursday game between Boston College and Virginia Tech. And lately, I've been having some pretty bad luck when it comes to these games. So, with that being said, with Virginia Tech getting a favorite, being the favorite in this game, honestly surprised, I am going to go with the home team in this scenario. But I will not be surprised if Virginia Tech somehow loses. Next we have is the Florida State Seminoles taking on the Duke Blue Devils. And both teams are coming off bye weeks, but the last time we saw these two teams, Florida State was losing to Clemson at home, and Duke suffered their first loss against Georgia Tech. And Duke's right now a 3-point favorite in this game. And given that Florida State right now is a mess, I can't believe I'm doing this. I gotta roll with the Duke Blue Devils to win. But deep down inside, I will be cheering for Florida State to win. And now we have the Oregon Ducks taking on the Purdue Boilermakers. Oregon coming off probably its biggest win of the last 5 years or so, beating Ohio State at home. Welcome to the Big Ten, Oregon. And then Purdue, they got, well, they actually gave a good effort against Illinois. I'll give them that. But they end up losing via 2-point conversion with a chance to win. So at least Purdue gave some effort. Now this game, I do sense trap game. Oregon's now the number 2 ranked team in the country. They're coming off that huge win over a big time Ohio State that we're probably going to end up seeing these two teams again. But I could see Oregon get caught napping against this game. But it isn't gonna be that major though. I'm gonna and with that being said, I think Oregon should take care of Purdue for the win. But I will say Oregon will not cover that 27.5 point spread. I will say that. And then to close off the Friday matchups, we have Oklahoma State taking on BYU. Oklahoma State, I really don't know what's going on with that school. 3 straight losses, including a blowout home loss to Kansas State, coming off a bye. And BYU, are they the best team in the Big 12? They're undefeated, coming off a big win from Arizona. Things are looking really good for the Mormons down in Utah. Do I think they're the best team? I will say it's still 8 weeks in. It's to be determined. But this game will be a good indictment of where they could be. I'm gonna go ahead and take BYU to win, and I'll be very upset if Oklahoma State wakes up off their bye week and pulls off this W. And now we're on to Saturday's games. We have Nebraska taking on unbeaten Indiana. Indiana's coming off a bye. Last time we saw them, they was beating Northwestern. Nebraska coming off a low-scoring game against North. I believe they was playing Rutgers, and it was 14-7. Nebraska, they're an okay team. I'm just gonna leave it at that. They're not bad. They're not good. They're just okay. And with this game being played at Indiana, I do expect this to be a closer matchup than what people think. I'm going to go ahead and take Indiana, the home team, to win this game. But I will not be surprised if Nebraska pulls off a miracle against this school. Just saying. And following that, we have the UCLA Bruins taking on the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. UCLA, they got off to a good start against Minnesota. Unfortunately, it did not end that way as they wound up losing that game 21-17. Rutgers, on the other hand, home blowout loss to Wisconsin. 2 straight losses for this school. And this game, this is kind of concerning, if you ask me. Two straight losses, people are start looking around a bit at Rutgers. But I do think this is the perfect get right game for them. I know I have not been picking Rutgers a lot this season, but I think this will be the perfect get right game for this school to get the W over a rebuilding UCLA Bruins team. And then we have the Arizona State Sun Devils taking on the Cincinnati Bearcats. Arizona State, how about the last two games? They beat Kansas on a come from behind win, and then they beat Utah at home on a Friday night, adding on to my Friday night misery on this channel. Cincinnati, big road win over Central Florida. Although Central Florida had their minds were on other things, we are saying prayers for all those affected by Hurricane Milton down there. And pretty much Cincinnati, they got the dub. They got the job done. Walked out of there with the W. In this game, I think this is a toss-up game, a true toss-up. Cincinnati is favored, but Arizona State, I've got this is a game I've kind of gone back and forth on who should I pick. And you know what? I'm gonna lean towards Arizona State to win. I'm gonna go with the Sun Devils to get the W. But with Cincinnati being at home, this don't count them out. And then we have Virginia Cavaliers taking on the Clemson Tigers. And for Virginia, they suffered a tough home loss to Louisville. And for Clemson, they won. Can't remember. They won on the road, beating Wake Forest, which was pretty much a home game because that stadium was dominated by Clemson fans. And in this game, I don't see a scenario where Virginia wins. It will be surprising, and it will cause ACC chaos. But Clemson right now, they're playing really good football, and they have finally figured it out with that team. So I'm gonna roll with the Tigers to win. And following that, we have the Wisconsin Badgers taking on the Northwestern Wildcats. And for Wisconsin, they got the blowout win on the road. In fact, last two games have been very, very favoritism towards them. Impressive showing from Wisconsin the last two games, given their circumstances. And then Northwestern, how about them? Road Friday night win over Maryland. On and it was pretty much buoyed by a 24 point. They scored like 24 or 23 points in the fourth quarter to pull away from that game. So that's really nice to know. And yeah, this one I do think Wisconsin's going to win. Right now, they're pretty much red hot. Even after that quarterback injury they had earlier this year, they have since been kind of hot. So I'm going to roll with Wisconsin to win. But Northwestern, they should give this a decent battle. And then we have a pretty interesting early matchup between the Miami Hurricanes and the Louisville Cardinals. Miami, another come from behind win. This time over Cal 2 weeks ago. They had a bye week last week. And Louisville going rebounding on the road against SMU. This game, like I said, this one could go in any direction. I know Miami is the favorite team, but I will not be surprised if Louisville gives them a run for their money. And I've gone back and forth with this one, but in the end, I end up settling with Miami to win. And the only reason why I'm picking Miami was because they had a bye week. They had the time to recover, lick their wounds, regroup after two very, very, very close ACC wins. They could finally get back, regroup, get their minds right ahead of this Louisville game. So I'm gonna roll with Miami to win. However, with the game being in Louisville, I will not be surprised if Louisville wins. Just saying. And now we have the Auburn Tigers taking on the Missouri Tigers. Tiger Bowl. And last time we saw Missouri, they had a bye week last week. The week before, oh boy, they actually, you know what? Missouri didn't have a bye week. They ended up beating on Massachusetts. okay, whatever. But consider it a glorified bye week. But they were shellacked by Texas A&M, and people exposed them as the SEC frauds. Meanwhile, Auburn, things have not been going right for the school at all. They have a revolving door at quarterback right now. The team, yeah, they just not been playing good football, finding ways to lose games. And with this game being in Missouri, I am gonna take the other Tiger team to win this game. And while I do see a scenario where Auburn has a chance, I can't go against the home team in this scenario. Gotta say it. And speaking of tough football, we have South Carolina taking on Oklahoma. Two teams coming off of very interest. They had both teams have very interesting weeks last week. For Oklahoma, let's start with you. They got blown out by Texas in the Red River rivalry. I was hoping that game was closer than what the people were saying, but it just wasn't meant to be. And for South Carolina, they had a 19-14 fourth quarter lead over Alabama, but I think Alabama ended up rallying. South Carolina did score a late touchdown, and they had a chance to win, but it was just not meant to be. And I'm gonna base this pick off of momentum for this one, because Oklahoma, they did bench their freshman quarterback for Jackson Arnold, and during that blowout loss. South Carolina, right now they're proven to they're being the side of the thorn of every other SEC team. And based on momentum, I'm gonna give the slight edge to the Gamecocks to win. But game in Oklahoma, y'all already know what I'm gonna say. Then we have North Carolina State taking on California Bears. California, tough road loss to Pitt. I ended up picking them, but we'll talk about Pitt probably next week. I think they have a bye week anyway. And for North Carolina State, tough home loss to Syracuse, and right now that team is being ravished by injuries. But their defense, they played decent. So there's that. With this game being played in California, tough long road trip, I gotta go Cal to win. I think they're due for a big time win this year because California, they're better than what the 3-3 record indicates. Y'all know that. And I think State going on the road for a very, very, very long road trip. I gotta go with Cal to win. And then we have two bottom dwellers of the Big 12. We have Houston taking on the Kansas Jayhawks. And for Houston, last week, well, the week before they beat TCU, I think both teams had a bye week, if I'm correct. But Houston, road win over TCU, very impressive. Kansas, on the other hand, I think I finally figured what the problem is with this school. And it's that this team doesn't know how to finish games. Because most of the time they had leads in the fourth quarter with like 2 minutes left. The other team would drive down the field, score a touchdown, Kansas lose. That's how their season's been for them this year. Now they did have a bye week last week, so maybe they could regroup. Hopefully they could have a hope for a second half Big 12 turnaround. But as of right now, they're looking like the basement dwellers that everyone's used to them being. But they're taking on Houston. I'm still gonna pick. I'm gonna go ahead and take the Jayhawks to win this game, only because they're at quote unquote home. It's being played in Arrowhead, but I think the Jayhawks have a little bit more talent than Houston does. Give me the Jayhawks. And now we have the Michigan Wolverines taking on the Illinois Fighting Illini. And this game is actually really, really tough for me to pick. Illinois got a very long, gritty overtime win over Purdue. And Michigan, they had a bye week last week, but last time we saw them, they lost. They lost to Washington on a championship rematch. So for this game, right now, Michigan, we don't know who their quarterback's going to be. They played three different guys. Each one of them, all three of them brought in mixed results. And honestly, I like I said, I really don't know who to pick. It's a toss up. This is a definition of a toss up game, but I'm gonna partially throw my hope on Michigan to win. But Illinois, well, they're at home. Won't be surprised if they pull it off. And then we have the Deep South. Wait, that's not Deep South over Otis rivalry. This is the third Saturday of October rivalry between the Alabama Crimson Tide taking on the Tennessee Volunteers. And both teams had very similar weeks. Starting off with Tennessee, after losing to Arkansas on the road in a stunning fashion, they end up struggling with the Florida Gators at home. They had to get through overtime to get the win for over them. And as for Alabama, after losing on the road to Vanderbilt, they struggled at home to South Carolina. Now, unlike Tennessee, they didn't need overtime to get the job done, but it raised some alarm bells. I'll say that. So, this game, I do think this might be a defensively founded game. Tennessee has a good defense. Their offense is, well, their offense, which had a good start on the year, has quickly fizzled out. And for Alabama, I think this is pretty much a get right game for them. And they have a chance to get things right. It's going to be, that stadium's going to be rocking for Saturday. And oh, well, this is more back and forth than you think. But I'm gonna have to roll with the Tide barely to win this game. And it's mostly gonna boil down to the talent they have on offense. I'm not too crazy about Tennessee's offense, especially how they played the last couple of weeks. I gotta go with the Tide to win. And then we have the Notre Dame Fighting Irish taking on the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. And this game is going to be played in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium because I think Georgia Tech, they expect a big crowd because of Notre Dame fans. So they decided to move into a bigger building. Funny that there will be a game there the next day, but that's beyond the point. Notre Dame blowout loss to Stanford. Georgia Tech gritty road win over North Carolina, which they had to use a 61-yard touchdown run to get the win. I'll have more things to say about North Carolina next week about that. And this game, I think it's going to be very, very close. I think it's going to be closer than what the people think. I'm going to take Notre Dame to win because they have found some momentum for them. But I will say this. I don't think Notre Dame will cover that 11-point spread. Georgia Tech's going to make things very, very, very close. And following that, we have the Colorado Buffaloes taking on the Arizona Wildcats. And Arizona's really, really a tough team to gauge. Because one week they'll beat Utah, the next week they'll lose at home to Texas Tech. And for Colorado, sure they lost to Kansas State, but they did make it a really good fight for them. I'll give them that. And this game is another one of those back and forth, flip of a coin type game. They said Arizona's favored to win this game. That's very interesting. And you know what? Because they're at home and I have no idea on who to pick, I gotta give it to Arizona. That's just my rules. But Colorado, I think they're definitely not gonna be, you know, I can't even get the words out my mouth. You know, they're not gonna hit the for, I don't know what I'm saying. Let's say Colorado won't back down. Let's move on. USC, Maryland. Maryland blown out by Northwestern. USC played a really good game against Penn State, but in the end they ended up losing to overtime to them. And in this game, I do see Maryland slipping up, but given how they played last week, I'm not too crazy about them. I'm rolling with USC to win this game. And following that, we have BYU. I mean, not BYU. Baylor. Why am I getting those two schools mixed up this season? Taking on Texas Tech. Texas Tech coming off of a big road win over Arizona, and Baylor. I can't recall what Baylor did last week. I think did they lose at home? Something happened to them last week. I can't recall. But in this game, Texas Tech right now they're riding a bit of a high. They're still unbeaten in a wide open Big 12. I do think Texas Tech will play a really good hard fought game against Baylor. And then we have Texas A&M taking on the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Texas A&M had a bye week last week, and it's a good time because now they have a chance to get healthy. And hey, they're undefeated in the SEC. That's a win. Meanwhile, Mississippi State, they lost to Georgia, but they scored 31 points against them. I know most of it was in garbage time, but 31 points against a Georgia defense, which no one knows what's going on with that team right now. That's a win for Mississippi State, but come on now. Texas A&M, they are the better team. I do think they should win this game. And then we have the LSU trap game of the year, where LSU takes on Arkansas. And last week they got a huge home win over Ole Miss. It was LSU after dark, which means that environment is going to be very tough. I told everybody that LSU was going to win. Arkansas, in the meantime, had a bye week last week, so they didn't play at all. And this is a typical trap game. And you know what? This will be my upset pick of the week. I'm going to roll with the Razorbacks to win because Arkansas has always give LSU problems, especially after whenever they play a big game. It could be whether LSU coming off of Alabama win or whenever LSU beats like Texas A&M or Ole Miss coming off a huge win. Then they'll play Arkansas, and Arkansas will give them all they can handle and then some. So I'm going to roll with the Razorbacks to get the job done. And we have UCF taking on Iowa State. UCF losing at home to Cincinnati. Iowa State winning again. Right now, the Cyclones, they're going all in on this Big 12 title run. I got to go with the Cyclones to win. And Kansas State taking on West Virginia. Kansas State coming off a road win over Colorado. And West Virginia, they were the ones that lost to Iowa State at home. Iowa State got a big win on the road. And in this game, it's a toss-up. This is another one of those toss-up games. I'm going to go with the road team. I'm taking Kansas State to win. And then we have Iowa taking on Michigan State. Michigan State had a bye week. Iowa, they scored 40 points in the game. Very, 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 very impressive. They'll take what they can get. And given that Michigan State's not that really good of a football team this year, I'm going to go with Iowa State to win. And then we have the University of Kentucky taking on the University of Florida. In Kentucky, they're coming off a tough home loss to Vanderbilt in their 10,000 dogs. And Florida, tough road loss over Tennessee. And in this game, oh boy, this one actually gonna be pretty fun. Also, before I actually make a selection, prayers out to Graham Mertz. Last week he tore his ACL. Hope he has a safe and speedy recovery. More importantly, a safe recovery. And given past history for this game, I'm going to give the slight edge to Kentucky to win. Because Kentucky, they used to never win in this building, but in recent history, they have found ways to beat Florida any chance they get. So give me the Kentucky Wildcats to win. And now we have SMU taking on Stanford. And Stanford blowout loss on the road to Notre Dame. SMU, I believe they had a bye week last week. I didn't hear much from them. They're now ranked. SMU's now ranked. And 15-point favorites. Hard pick against them. TCU, Utah. TCU had a bye week last week, but last time we saw them, they lost at home to Houston. And Utah, 2 straight losses in a row. Both of them involving Arizona schools. And now I'm hearing words that Cam Rising might shut it down so he could gain an 8th year of college. Bro, get a job, man. Utah, they desperately need a win to get things right. I'm going to go with them to win. And TCU, tough sledding. And finally, the game of the week, and it's pretty much no surprise that it is the Georgia Bulldogs taking on the Texas Hook'em Horn Longhorns. And for Georgia, last week, yes, they got the win over Mississippi State, but they ended up giving up 31 points to them. And I know those points, like I said, came in garbage time, but Georgia giving up 31 points, that's a problem. Meanwhile, Texas, they didn't have any problems with Oklahoma. Quinn Ewers came back and he basically did what he came to do. Got the win over their rival Oklahoma, and yeah, they look like the best team in college. This game, oh boy, if this is a toss-up game, if you've ever seen one, I don't know what else is. I think this game's gonna be fireworks. Two two of the best in the nation. But I will say if Georgia loses this game, that's going to be very problematic for the if they want to see this team again in the future. I mean, I did say Georgia was the best team by a long shot before the season even began, but now that statement is aging very, very not good. And in this game, being played in Texas is hard for me to go against the Hook'em Horns. I'm gonna go with Texas to win, but Georgia, y'all gonna give them everything you got. I know y'all. And with that being said, that concludes our college football predictions for this week. Tell me what y'all think in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Gamble safely, and I'll see you next time.